So I just wanted to do a quick video about safely reholstering your gun, especially when you carry appendix. A lot of people choose not to carry appendix because, I mean, you got a gun pointed at your femoral artery all day. Guys, well, so if you holster your gun safely and you have your gun in a good holster that protects your trigger, this shouldn't be a concern. Guns are drop safe, modern handguns are drop safe, but you need to have a holster that's capable of protecting your trigger. That's first and foremost. So whenever you go to reholster, especially from appendix, it is really important that we're mindful of where our muzzle is at all times. In a holster like this, where it's attached to my body, essentially the Reholster Enigma, I can't, well, oftentimes my gun is loaded in the holster already and I put the whole holster on with the gun already inside it. If you could do that, that's the most advantageous, that's the safest. But, you know, when you're training and things like that and you go to reholster your gun, obviously you don't want to take your holster off every time you're reholstering. So it's important to safely reholster your gun. So first things first, I gotta load my gun. So I'm loading my hollow points in here, load the gun, chamber around. At this point, I will typically drop my magazine and just set it off to the side and worry about topping it off later. I can put my gun away and put my magazine in it after it's already safely in its holster. I'm not gonna set down my loaded gun when it's out of my control in order to load and top off my magazine. So I'm just gonna worry about loading my magazine right now, or I'm sorry, holstering my gun right now safely and being very focused on this. One other thing, when I load my gun and chamber around, I'm very mindful about it. Like, I just put a round in my chamber. I have a hot gun right now and I'm about ready to put it on my person. So I need to be very mindful. If I was at home or something like that and somebody walked into the room to talk to me, to ask me a question or whatever, I'm just gonna unload my gun and set it down and give them my attention, or I'm gonna ask them to wait until I finish holstering my gun appropriately and safely, because this is a mindful process, and if you do this wrong, that's when bad things happen. So don't get complacent, always be mindful of what you're doing. And in fact, doing this video is actually very distracting. So I'm gonna do this again. I'm just going to worry about that in a minute. So I have my gun, slides locked back. I'm gonna load it, my magazine in, drop my slide, take that guy back out so I can top it back off, but I still have a loaded hot gun, okay? So first thing I do is I turn it to the side a little bit. It just keeps me more mindful of my muzzle as I bring it back this way, because if I keep it this way, it doesn't go into my holster in this direction. And I don't want to turn it to my side and flag anybody else. So in order to keep that same direction, I turn it horizontally, and that way I can keep my muzzle pointed in a safe direction as I bring it towards my body. Notice my left hand is staying out of the way and it's not fiddling with things up here or anything like that. So next I'm going to push my hips forward and lift up my shirt and look inside my holster. I want to make sure that there's nothing in my holster. Sometimes my undershirt will get in the way and start to go down into my holster. This is how guns go off. Guns fire from the trigger being pulled. So be mindful of what could be in your holster. Look, nobody ever won a gunfight by holstering their gun the fastest. So take your time, be mindful, and look at what you're doing, pay attention. So I look down at my holster, I push my hips forward. Essentially, if the bottom of my holster, there's a hole in there, if it wasn't in my pants, I'd be able to see the floor. I know that there's nothing below that. So I'm going to carefully bring my gun back in as I'm looking into the holster. Notice that my muzzle is never covering me. It's staying pointed away from me as I push the gun nicely into the holster. Nice and slow. If there was ever a time where I felt some resistance, stop. Get the gun back out, set it down, and figure out what's going on. It's not worth just shoving it in there and saying, hoping for the best. Look, figure it out. It's not worth it, okay? Make sure the gun's securely in there. Then you can top off your magazine and then put it into the bottom of your gun and make sure you feel it click into place, okay? Give it a little tug to make sure. That's how you safely reholster a gun appendix.